mean by everywhere? If the person, when they said Allah Ta'ala is everywhere, they didn't mean physically everywhere because they didn't believe Allah Ta'ala is a physical body, then what they said, what their intention behind it, they didn't say kufr. They said something that was incorrect, but based on the intent of what they said when they said it, they didn't disbelieve because they didn't mean Allah Himself or His essence is everywhere. But the statement itself shouldn't be said because it can be understood the wrong way. They meant Allah is everywhere in His knowledge, in His wisdom, in His sight, and His hearing. They didn't mean Allah Ta'ala Himself is everywhere because they didn't believe Allah is a physical body to begin with, to be embodied in the whole universe. He didn't believe that to start with. Like water is everywhere in a cup. They didn't believe that in the first place. But they just said Allah is everywhere, meaning that His hearing, His sight, His knowledge is everywhere. But they should avoid saying such a thing because if they believe the outward meaning of it, that can lead to kufr and shirk. They have to be careful about that. But based on their intentions, if they didn't intend that Allah Ta'ala is physically everywhere, then they didn't do kufr. You see what I'm saying? So which is why we have to look deeper into what people are saying. Look deeper into the words of people. Not just based on a word, the outward meaning of it is wrong. So based on that, we're going to make takfir on something. No, investigate. What do you mean when you say it? When you say that, how do you mean that right there? What's behind that statement? Because certain things are impossible for the law. Certain things are necessary for the law. Like the existence of Allah is necessary for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like Allah Ta'ala's knowledge is necessary for Allah. It's inconceivable that Allah Ta'ala does not know everything. It's inconceivable that Allah Ta'ala would not be existing. So knowing the judgments of the intellect, the judgments of the mind is important for every Muslim to know. Because in understanding and knowing the judgments of the intellect is intellect itself. Knowledge of the intellect, or how the mind thinks, how we perceive things. That in itself, knowing that science and knowing that classification is intellect. You see what I'm saying? It's like a person has a knife, they don't know how to use it to cut. Once they learn how to cut with it, that is the science of cutting. Now you have a knife and you know what to do with it. If a person has a pen but they don't know how to write, they just have a pen, they have to be taught, yeah, this is how you write. So having that pen and having the knowledge of how to write with it, that is handwriting. You see what I'm saying? So we have to learn and know, inshallah, how to use our intellect and what the judgments of the intellect, what rational judgment is. And that's the topic of this class. So that we know how to perceive things, how to think of things, how the mind works, basically. And how the information that we receive, how we are to interpret it. So for that reason, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, we're going to hand out some papers. Inshallah, we'll save the questions to the end unless it's pertinent to something I just now said.
It is.
What is it?
Then what you're saying, the proof of that would be Ibrahim in search of Allah. When he used all these things and found out that there had to be something more mightier than that. Correct?
Something more.
More mightier than what he was being praised. In other words, when his father had him doing the things with the statues, no?
Okay.
And his statue fell in the water, and he waited for it to literally save itself. And he went home, and his father disowned him for making a blasphemy of the statuette that he made. So he went and searched for his God. So the sun and the moon, it came out, and when it disappeared, he realized that his Lord, even though the brightness and the light and everything, it was at that particular time fascinated him, but then it disappeared. So he realized that my Lord has to be more powerful than this, and he has to be the one who created this.
Okay.
Now, so that was his own intellect in search of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
oh, there's a million stories like that. Alhamdulillah, I mean, I'm glad you got the point, but yeah, there's the stories that we can go on and on with, those types of stories, but the thing is, for us tonight to understand, how do we do what he did? How do we rationalize? So we're going to get to that, inshallah, but we don't got a lot of time. We got to keep it going, inshallah. So we're going to do, but let's come closer, inshallah. Everybody, whoever's in the back and everything, come closer. I'm going to give you all these handouts, inshallah. We're going to read this together, inshallah, and try to ponder on the meanings that's in this. Here you go, Afi. This one's yours. You keep that one, inshallah. Here you go, Afi. Nah. Tafaddal. There's two of them there. Okay, Afwan. Barakallahu ta'ala. So now, we begin. Rational judgments. Al-Hukm al-Aqli. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الصادق الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Al-Hukm, the judgment. Al-Hukm is judgment. It is the affirmation of something for something or the negation of something from something. This is what Hukm is, the judgment. No, I already gave you. Okay. Hukm is the affirmation of something for something or the negation of something from something. Right? So that's basically now, if we say, for instance, so-and-so, like for instance, the winter is cold. The winter is one thing, coldness is another thing. The affirmation of coldness to the winter is a judgment. Fire is hot, right? So fire is one thing, is something, and then heat is another thing. To affirm heat for fire, that's a judgment. Because judgment is the affirmation of something for something, or the negation of something from something. So if a person says, fire is not cold, that's a judgment. A person has negated something, which is coldness, from something, which is fire. So they negated one thing from the other, so that's a judgment. So a person, in their statements that they make judgments all the time. Our minds make judgments before our tongues do. The way that we perceive things, the way that we understand and see things is a judgment in itself. And we use our tongues to express the judgments that we have in our heart and in our mind. We say what we believe things to be, whether it's right or wrong. You know what I'm saying? It may be right, may be wrong, but nevertheless, when we're using a subject and a predicate and we're saying this is that, we made a judgment. Or if we say this is not that, that's also a judgment. Right? So that's what a judgment means. The affirmation of something for something or the negation of something from something. So, Akhi, what is a judgment?
You want me to read the definition?
Tell me what it is. You can look at it and say it.
An example?
No. Repeat what I said. Y'all gotta learn this.
Okay.
Exactly how to the same words.
It's an affirmation from something.
Of something.
Of something to something, or a negation of something from something.
Nah, Akhi, what is a hukm? What is a judgment?
Is the affirmation of something for something, or the negation of something for something.
From something.
From something.
What is a judgment, Sheikh?
Is the affirmation of something for something,
No.
negation of something from something.
Allahu Akbar. What is a judgment?
Is the affirmation of something from something,
For something.
or something for something, or something from something.
Yes, exactly. So why are we doing that? Because it's one thing to hear, but it don't sink in until you actually say it yourself. The person can hear it 1,000 times, but then the person asks you outside in the masjid, what did he say in here? I gotta get back with you on that, inshallah. I got the paper, I got the paper, I got the tape, I got the CD somewhere, you know what I mean? So our tongues get used to it. Hukm is, if someone asks you on the street, someone asks you outside, what is a judgment? Judgment is affirmation of something for something, or negation of something from something. It can go either way. You affirm this for that, or you negate this from that. Either way, it's a judgment. Al-aql, intellect. Al-aql. Aql has a lot of definitions, actually. There's a lot of definitions for what aql actually is. It's what separates the human beings from the animals. It is basically the condition, one of the conditions of taklif, which means it makes a person morally responsible for their actions. It makes a person mukallaf. So if a person doesn't have aql, there's no taklif on them. Because if a person doesn't have aql, that means they're either retarded or they're in a coma. You know what I'm saying? If a person is unconscious, so they don't, akhi, inshallah, tafadhal, see. Ta'al, inshallah, bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. كيف الحال؟ حياك الله. بارك الله فيك. جزاك الله خير. تفضل.
Oh,
Here you go.
okay. This is today, right?
Yes. That's where we are right now, inshallah. So then, the intellect is one of the conditions of taklif, right? One of the conditions that makes a person morally responsible. When a person has an aql or has an intellect, they're responsible for the actions that they do, because they can't say, oh, I was retarded, or oh, I wasn't able to think right, or I didn't know what was going on. That person is responsible because they're able to think.